Opening night for the Utah Jazz as they take on the Thunder. Now we are joined by Commissioner Adam Silver.
I'm smiling, if only people knew.
I am too. They can see it through our eyes right now.
I can see my glasses fogging up.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Last time we talked, the All-Star game was announced here in Salt Lake City. It was a completely different world, completely different lead voice with the Millers. Did you ever imagine that there would be a new ownership group in place here in Utah?
Honestly, I didn't. I mean, I've been around the league long enough to know that transitions inevitably take place for all kinds of reasons, but I didn't see this coming. I knew Ryan Smith through a league relationship that we have with Qualtrics, and we were friendly. I knew that he was a diehard NBA fan and a partner of the Utah Jazz, but I got that call one day from Gail and Greg Miller and with Ryan and said that they had just shaken hands on a deal to transfer the franchise. But at the same time, I know I heard directly from Gail and Greg that they felt like they were selling the team to someone in the family. You know, someone who was already a partner, was of the community. And the Miller family, of course, I just had a chance to say hi to Gail. And it's not like they went anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I'm surprised, but at the end of the day, I'm also really happy because it made sense for the Miller family and it made sense for Ryan and his family.
It's not out of the ordinary to have players involved, but one in Dwayne Wade, one of the legends of the game, is in the ownership group. How has the player involvement in your board of governors influenced the way things are running now?
It's been very helpful. I mean, whether it's been Grant Hill in Atlanta, of course, Michael Jordan as a principal owner. We've had Shaquille O'Neal out in Sacramento, David Robinson in San Antonio. And I think it's very healthy at the end of the day for the league. I would say in the case of Dwayne Wade, this goes back many years. I mean, even when he was in the prime of his career, he used to somewhat jokingly say to me, and this was before even I was commissioner, I was probably deputy commissioner at the time, he would say, you're going to be working for me one day. I mean, he always aspired to be an owner in this league and to have that perspective at the table of someone who has played, understands the league from a player standpoint. Of course, having him directly involved in this franchise is very meaningful because he can help Ryan and his partners, guide them, you know, in understanding of how to win, which Dwayne knows how to do, obviously. So it's great for the whole basketball ecosystem. And it's one thing for players, too, that when they come into this league, they not only can aspire to be coaches, general managers, team presidents one day, broadcasters, but also be in ownership. So I'm thrilled.
Donovan Mitchell has taken a lead voice for being a champion of causes, and this league has not shied away from that. How have you enjoyed that collaboration with stars, Donovan Mitchell and others around the league?
I particularly enjoyed it when it is a collaboration. I think that on the issues around social justice in particular, there's a long track record of this league of standing up for issues of racial equality, human rights, generally fair conditions for all, not just in this country, but everywhere. And I think that the fact that seeing that trend continue to this generation of players where they feel comfortable finding their voice, through their activities in the communities, through social media. To me, it's part of the DNA of this league, and has been for a long time. And Donovan, to me, is just the latest example of a young man who has been incredibly thoughtful about these issues. And it's obviously, in his case, it's not just his speech, but his actions. Things he's done in this community, things he's done in his home community back in Connecticut. Amazingly impressive young man, and I particularly, as you said, appreciate the partnership. And I know Ryan, has been very forceful on these issues as well. I know These are issues near and dear to his heart, and so I think it's why there's such a strong partnership between the players and management here in Utah.
There's a great international flavor for this team with Rudy Gobert being a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, All-NBA. How do those players help expand the reach of the NBA into markets like France and other places?
Frankly, just as you might imagine, that when people can find connections with players, whether it's here in the U.S. because a player comes from their same hometown, or played at a college in their state, or played to the school for the school they went to, it just creates that much more engagement. And when you have, whether it's a French player or a Spanish player, players from around the world playing in this league, and it's something like getting close to 25% of this league, of players in this league were born outside the United States. And that's what creates this really strong global following, to the point now where our games are distributed. I used to use the word broadcast, but as you know, it comes in all forms these days. But our games are distributed in 215 countries and territories, which is essentially the whole world. And that strong engagement really comes by those connections directly to our players.
Let you go on this because you mentioned the broadcast before. Broadcasts were so widely available. NBA 75, all these great players from years past. You grew up a Knicks fan. What does this mean? What does this mean for you in celebrating the legends of the game now?
I just want to clarify, I did grow up a Knicks fan, but when I came to the league, I became very neutral about all teams. But it's really fun to celebrate the 75th anniversary. I mean, I'm enjoying reading all the different lists that the media is creating around who the 75 greatest are, and then ranking who's the top 5 and things like that. Certainly I have some of my childhood favorites. Earl Monroe is one of them, was that 73 championship. The Knicks, I was growing up in the New York area at the time, and certainly I remember that team and Walt Clyde Frazier in the backcourt with Earl Monroe. And so it's what I think is also so special about this league is that because it's 75 years, it's not 150 years, you have essentially some of our very greatest ever are still around, and you can talk to them about the game. I mean, Bill Russell comes to mind. I always say it's like if you were a baseball fan, you can talk to Babe Ruth. And so that's what's especially fun. I mean, we've of course very sadly lost some of our great players, but a lot of them are not just around, but they're active in the league. Bob Cousy is someone who is must be in his early 90s, who I talk to on a regular basis and hear him telling about back in the day. And what I also love in this league is the transfer from generation to generation. It's also one of the great things about having Dwayne Wade around this team, is that these young players learn so much from the players that came before them, and then appreciate how much harder things were in the early days of the league. So it's wonderful to have this celebration, and I've also truly enjoyed a lot of the highlights that, as we talk about these players, whether it's short shorts and everything else, it's been fun to watch Stockton and Malone.
Yes.
Some of the highlights. So it's great for fans, and it's great for all of us, even at the league office.
I did a deep dive on Earl the Pearl because he is the only person to take Pearl as a nickname from Pelé, the soccer star during the NASL.
I didn't know that.
Yes. They were both named Pearl, and Earl the Pearl told him there's only one Pearl in New York.
I remember growing up, as big as star as Pele was coming to New York, Earl the Pearl Monroe was the big star at the time. And I think I can understand. These days he would have trademarked it,
Yeah.
People didn't think that way back then.
An NFT, maybe.
He would have had an NFT, no question, around the Pearl. But I see that. And I have to say one more thing about Earl Monroe, just because you mentioned him. There's a brand new school in New York City, in the Bronx, named after Earl Monroe, which is a school that is created for young people who want to work in basketball, like you and me,
Yes.
but who aren't players. And whether for broadcasters, administrators at the league office, marketers, salespeople, communications people, it's a charter school, but the goal is to use basketball as a platform for these young people, boys and girls, to get great educations. And it's named after Earl Monroe, and he and I were there together 2 weeks ago for the opening. So I was just honored to be there. But I think it just goes to show how big this game can be and how we can influence young people, even when their goal isn't to play on the court, it's just to have jobs like you and I had to.
Well, and I'm glad I have them. I'm glad I get to talk to you here on Roundball Roundup on UtahJazz.com. Commissioner,
Thanks,
thank you
JP.
so much.
Great to be here.